Hey everyone. So I did a psychic reading on Q-anon, the conspiracy group that what I've mostly heard them being about is being a pro-Trump conspiracy and a kind of Republican, I guess you could say. I think that's safe to say. So anyways, I did the reading already and I wrote it down. So this is an example of a written reading versus a live reading. I think the last video I did was a live reading. This I felt like was kind of more of a kind of complicated situation. So I felt that I might need more time to sit before I just start saying what I'm saying. So I did the written reading. So I'm just going to go ahead and read what I wrote. Trump does not appear to be behind QAnon and simply sees it as a fan base, which it appears to be. As far as I'm seeing it more so as a young adult who is into conspiracies and connects it up with Trump. I'm seeing there is a lot more truth to what is being pushed than many believe, but that it is definitely filled with false information as well. I see the sources being many conservative voices, mixed with all sorts of information that is a little jaded from time to time in their perspective, and can come to false conclusions based off of the facts. So in other words, they can kind of connect things up and create false conclusions. As far as Donald Trump being a hero, as I have heard that QAnon is claiming, I am not seeing Trump as the savior, but there are plans put into powerful places that are now basic procedures ingrained into the system, and Trump is a wild card that does not always function within those paradigms, which is why he comes across as being against the ingrained U.S. corruption, even though he may not be so innocent himself. Long-term plans that most presidents go along with are not happening, and so some bands of power are losing their monopoly while Trump gains his in place of it, or in place of theirs. He is no less corrupt, but not working within the same old system that has been normalized and hidden from public scrutiny. This involved military and operations of some sorts, and this is regarding the ingrained corruption that is overlooked. Long-term plans involving other countries making secret deals are involved. Control world economy through brute force. That's the strategy, I guess you could say. Opium poppy trade flashed in my mind. Although Trump may not be directly opposing this example, I don't know. I'm not sure if he is or isn't. It's just one of the examples that popped up in my mind related to this corruption when I was kind of asking, like, what is this about in general? Those who benefit are losing their stranglehold. That would be like those in power. In other words, those who benefit from these operations. This is where the idea comes from that Trump is here to save the day. Although many support him because he is less conforming to the old secretive system and is in favor of his own personal system. So, trading one issue for another, potentially trading an old, outdated, corrupt system for one that theoretically, hopefully, would be less corrupt, is the idea that QAnon is going for. At least this is what's coming up when I'm reading it, and I think this pretty well matches their general philosophy as well. from what I know. Something I was seeing when I was kind of asking, like, where is this all not necessarily headed, but well, yeah, where is this headed? What is the effect of this? And I saw a city being burned. This is more metaphoric than this isn't so literal. I also saw the Bill of Rights being burned, and this could also not literally be the Bill of Rights, but more symbolically, well, maybe literally the Bill of Rights, but other rights, just things of that nature. Now, seeing them being trampled over by conservative Republicans due to putting trust in Trump and their ideology over the Bill of Rights, despite what they talk about being about, and actually doing harm to what they are trying to protect by overinflating some rights and freedoms over others. This is not initially by design by Q-anon. It's not a psyops, psychological operation, as some people may speculate. But the reason why this is happening isn't by design of Q-anon, as I was saying, but it is a trap set up for those who follow such narratives. And this is set up by the media and things like the CIA in order to keep the power structure from being overrun, to keep themselves in power, but also as a safety net to prevent tyrannical ruling over the system. And that's kind of confusing how I wrote that, because what I really mean is that the way that these things are perceived is very divisive, and so that kind of leads towards issues, and that leads towards people fighting, and the Bill of Rights actually being burned symbolically, and the city burning down symbolically, even though that's kind of theoretically what they're opposed to. But I'm saying that it can kind of actually lead towards that, unfortunately. Q-anon has no agenda other than to be a conspiracy theorist and expose perceived corruption. The real corruption is not in their details outlined, or not in the things that they're trying to expose, but they're not within the details of what they're trying to expose. It's not so necessarily accurate, is what I'm trying to say. But there is a general truth to who is corrupt, but not for all the things mentioned in their conclusions. So they're onto something, but like their details are a little off, is basically what I'm trying to say here. They may be headed in the right direction, but barking up the wrong tree sometimes. Q-anon is like kids playing with information exchange as a game for fun. This is how I saw it in a vision, but a serious game involving curiosity and seeking the truth. Emotions can be at play as a way to bark up the wrong tree sometimes. I see Q-anon as being like a chair, and this is another vision I saw, that someone sits on and refuses to get up out of, which can lead to problems of further division down the road. I also see there being more truth to a lot of the generalized ideas than people will give them credit for, despite the opinionated convictions that may be one-sided and slightly skewed. Sitting on this chair, metaphorically, can cause anger, while others outside form bonds in a loving way. And so what I was seeing was somebody sitting in a chair inside, and the chair represented Q-anon, and there was like a bunch of people outside, and they're, frolicking, having a great time, all lovey-dovey, everything's good, basically, outside. But this guy was like forcing himself to sit in this chair because he was kind of like addicted, hooked on it, due to these convictions, is the way I was seeing it. So I'll continue reading. Followers can miss out on the compassion of the world around them while they hold on to their bitter truths and opinions. I really see the world coming together in love, but sitting in this chair too stubbornly can actually hinder the exposing of the corrupt at some point due to inflexibility of convictions. It can pick up doomy energy. That's just the type of energy I was saying that people can get stuck in. Like, everything's doomed, kind of. Um, Not that everything's doomed, but just like this doomy, kind of gloomy, doomy energy. I don't know how else to put it. Doomy energy in an echo chamber, forming a cult-like mentality if not careful. I'm not saying everyone is like that, or I'm not saying it inherently is like that, but that's a huge potential that I'm seeing for it. I see the next step for growth to be to throw down the phone, which represents information. This was in the vision I was seeing, and go outside to this group of people holding hands in a circle and opening up to others without such strong convictions. The truth may be true in different ways than expected. In other words, there may be some truth to what QAnon is saying, but it might not be in the way that they're presenting it. So let go of the convictions a little bit, try and be a little more loose. Don't assume that everything is exactly how it's being presented. Some truths are also just propaganda being repeated and trying to stretch things to connect dots to make it seem like proof. In other words, trying to, push their own narrative. There are definitely things that can be addressed by the public when presented with less convictions to them to be seen from a different light. So there is a positive to it for sure. Some of the Q-anon claims will be shown to be false, but some of the issues could lead to further investigation, and many of the claims dismissed while finding there are some truths to the allegations. Politicians are involved. There are things involving emails being exposed that have further exposing to be done. And I'm not saying, I'm not claiming this is like anything in particular. I don't know if this is like, the email hacks or what. That's what was coming to me. It was something about emails being exposed. But they have been shrouded with a mist of false convictions to throw people off. Military agendas that are not necessarily written, but shared goals among those in charge, such as, unwritten rules or unwritten agendas, are also of concern within the military. A disconnect between military and the good of humanity leads to claims that sound crazy without further context, but are actually true on some level. There is some truth to the rich elite getting away with dark things. Drugs, sex, and money show up. Many may have each other's backs when they all know of the corruption at hand, but see themselves as all in it together. So they're all in it together, even though they're corrupt. Older upper class comes to mind. Some of them may not even like what they are involved in, but still know that it is like a family secret. You wouldn't tell on Dad, would you? That's the kind of puts things in perspective. Like, you wouldn't tell on Dad, would you? That's what you're dealing with here. This is everything from supporting industries and corporations taking advantage of people, to personal gratification, indulgence, and doing stupid things for fun at the expense of others. All of the above. Playing games, taking chances, their mistakes are taken out on the less fortunate. They throw people away like trash. They're, elitist, higher class. Like going on a high-speed race and causing car accidents for the thrill of it, but not necessarily on purpose. But still, allowing it to happen, and it being a fun game, basically as the energy of the corruption that I was seeing. It's a thrill like jumping out of an airplane. Rich people parties are a thing that has less emphasis on rape, pedophilia than thought, even than what I was thinking, to be honest, is what I was reading. But it is more like going to a family party and finding your uncle drunk and getting high, except there is more of a disconnect and people are seen as more disposable. So it's a little bit more extreme than that because most people watching this probably aren't growing up in like the royal family or something, like super high class where you could get away with doing much more than that. But it would be kind of similar to that, if that makes any sense. Or it would be a similar experience from our perspective compared to their higher class perspective. Regardless, no one would call the cops on their uncle if he was up to some shady stuff that everyone knew about, right? I'm seeing sexual gratification being normalized in those groups, and I don't mean just like it being normalized, but I mean like more like kind of publicly accepted that like that's going on at parties and like people being more open about it and it not being something that you kind of don't talk about during dinner time or whatever. It's more like a party atmosphere. I don't see pedophilia being seeked out specifically as much as just women being of service for fun with sex and alcohol and potentially drugs as well. All of those were showing up. So it's more just like a party atmosphere that can get out of hand sometimes. Of course, people may want to up the ante and get a little wild sometimes. So, yeah. It's not like specifically seeking out these extreme cases of, you know, dark stuff necessarily. It's kind of just a party, but like it gets kind of crazy and then things kind of get more dark, is how I was seeing it, at least. Of course, I'm not saying it's only like that, that's just the way that I was seeing it in general. Of course, there are people within that who do seek out just the dark stuff exclusively, but that's besides the point. I'm seeing Q-anon being wrong about some of the interconnectedness of corruption, and it being more so simply individuals acting out with the police force, or within the police force, or whatever authority position they are able to guard themselves behind. So that could be the military, that could be an elitist, that could even be a, Hollywood superstar, just whatever their authority is, just getting away with stuff. However, there are networks of people covering things up, but on a much less interconnected level than QAnon may be saying. So it's not so much there's like an international network where all these criminals are all working in unison. They are on some level, in some aspect, but they're all really just kind of doing things on their own by themselves for the most part within little subgroups. It's a little less organized than QAnon, is what I'm getting as far as corruption goes. Some of the connections are made up. I am seeing a lot of rape cases being very accurate, though. I'm seeing it as though the truth is like a small rock held in QAnon's hand, while what is being held onto is a giant rock he is trying to pick up, but it's too heavy, which symbolizes all the extra stuff attached to the truth weighing down the light, so to speak. In other words, QAnon's trying to lift this giant rock that's too heavy, and it's because it has way too much false accusations attached to it. But there is definitely truth in it. I see QAnon as a curious young adult looking for truths, being led by their spirit actually, coming from an intuitive space, while being thrown into the internet web of information coming at him like advertisements, hooking him into one thing after another. And just so you know, I could be wrong. It might not be a young adult. It could be a little older than that. I don't know, but that's the general energy that I was getting. It could even be a metaphor. It could be somebody who's older, but they have the mentality of someone like that. I don't know for sure. There are political narratives being pushed behind some of the info Q-anon receives and integrates, but there is not any overseeing narrative being pushed. Again, like a lot of people, and I thought this too, that part of the reason why I wanted to do this reading was because I thought that, it could be potentially like even Donald Trump's controlling it to make him look good. Or, could be Donald Trump propaganda. Who knows? But I was definitely not seeing that being the case. It was definitely out of the curiosity of some young adult conspiracy theorists, coming to their own conclusions on their own. So this number kind of confused me when I first saw it, but what I saw was 97% of what is said has some level of truth to it, and I didn't expect it to be that high, honestly. And then I kind of looked further into it, and then what I got was that 24% of it is actually true. And then I don't even know what to make of this, but I kind of got another number. I got 18% is indisputable, regardless of perspective and different angles. And the way I interpret that is like the 18% is like more like fact, and the 24% is more like true, but there's like more of a story attached to it, so there's a little bit of like a perception to it. Like, it's not just like, hard facts. It's more like there's a narrative to the facts, but it's still true, if that makes sense. Um, and then 5%, oh yeah, so 18%, many things can be true at once, multiple purposes, in the sense that you can have, 10 people looking at the same event and have a different story about why it happened or the purpose of it. You can have multiple purposes, you can have multiple reasons why something happened that are all accurate from different angles, from different perspectives. So that's what I was saying. That's why there's these two different numbers. 5% of the truth will never be accepted as truth and will remain as a Q-anon claim, never to be addressed. I see Q-anon fading away in the future, but the work and effect it has had on people remaining and used as a resource to build upon. Things will not work out for Qanon, and I don't know exactly what that means, but that's just what I was getting, like word for word. Things will not work out for Qanon, and he will do something else instead over time. And I get the sense that could just be like spending more time with family, something like that. Just kind of getting out of the whole, internet thing, I guess you could say. He will no longer have a purpose to serve, is what I hear. And I still don't know exactly what that means, that's just what I was hearing. He will no longer have a purpose to serve for doing it, continuing to do it in the future. I see, so it's not like he's going to be taken down or something's bad's going to happen. That's not what I'm saying. I will see Q-anon as affecting the eastern portion of the U.S., so like the east coast, east half of the U.S., more than anything else. And I haven't like looked into this at all. I don't know like where the people in the U.S. that listen to it the most live, but that would be interesting to look into. While working his way into parts, Q-anon working his way into parts of the mid middle of the United States to the West Coast, raising questions and being of benefit in that manner, but also being a distraction from the bigger picture outside of QAnon's narrative, which can be stifling to orchestrating real change. The future can hold an unfortunate mob mentality to gang up on the West in a bullying sort of way. And this is like a mindset of QAnon. I'm seeing this not being very helpful in the future. It will hold a mentality of being set in your ways that will prevent future investigations into corruption, unfortunately, and justify aggressive behavior. It can hypnotize some people into never seeking truth any further due to conflicts in narrative or ideology. In other words, what they believe. I see it starting battles and even violence due to dogma. It may bring insight to some, but the majority of followers, I don't see it having a positive effect on in the future overall. Oddly enough, though, I see it being of benefit to women connected to nature, that's the way I was seeing it, on some level due to loosening up the tight grip of industrial control due to people challenging the official narrative. In other words, just kind of loosening up the tight kind of restrictive perspective that everybody kind of falls in line and everybody's all the same, and kind of loosening that expectation up a little bit. At least that's my interpretation. That's how I can make sense of what I was seeing. This is the intellectual narrative that says don't be ridiculous when the status quo is being challenged. This is more of a subtle effect that doesn't involve the followers of QAnon, however. So, I hope that made sense. If you have any comments about this, I'm open to hearing them. If you have anything else that I didn't address, I don't really know too much about QAnon, if I'm even pronouncing it right. So, let me know if there's something more that I should be looking into. And yeah, if you like this video, subscribe to my channel. You can also suggest other things if you have some ideas of stuff you want me to read, although I do have a couple things lined up, so it'll take me a while to get to it. I do private readings as well. Check out my website if you want to book a reading with me. And like this video. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.